something just took over. And there's this moment in the scene where he tells her, like, it's all right, it's all right. And she's like, I didn't realize how much I needed someone to just tell me it's all right. And I'm just like sobbing through this scene. Like, it was just such a moment of, like, my brother, even my dad, just like this feeling of them saying, it's okay to be okay. Like, you don't have to feel this guilt that you survived. You can be okay. And, don't waste a minute of your life continuing to live in the dark and the sadness, because you're here for a reason and you've got stories to tell.
You're listening to Lemmon's Listening Library. Discover the story behind the stories with unique and raw conversations from the people who make your favorite books a reality. Welcome to this episode of Lemmon's Listening Library. I am Randie Lemmons, fantasy author, or RL Rose to those of you in the romance community. Today I have Kathy, my co-host. Kathy's on with us. Kathy, tell everyone about yourself.
Hey y'all, I am Kathy Ireland. I own Phoenix Audio Productions and I help authors get their books into audiobook. I manage the whole process, finding your narrators, I take care of all the little things. I make sure that you are herded the way that you should be herded to get it done. Yeah, it's pretty fun. So I'm
Herded
pretty
like
much
sheep, not herded like this is a herded
cats.
listening to the audiobook.
Yeah, no, I heard cats.
All right, guys. Before we introduce our amazing guest today, I do have to do a little bit of housekeeping. We'll go through it as quick as possible because we know everyone is skipping this part right now. All right. I would like to remind our listeners to head over to our YouTube channel and comment on each episode that you listen to and review us on your chosen podcast platform. We are on all of them. It is the most helpful way that you can support our show with the least amount of effort. Couple of clicks, couple of rating on the stars, you're good to go. We also have advertising spots available where we create commercials and broadcast them across all of our platforms, as well as give you the commercials to use however you see fit. If you'd like more information on this, let me know. Send me an email at lemonslisteninglibrary@gmail.com and we'll get you hooked up with all the information you need for that. Lastly, go follow us on all of our social media platforms. Again, you can find us on all of them by searching Lemmon's Listening Library and let us know what your favorite episode has been so far. I would love to hear that. All right, guys, the moment we've all been waiting for. Sarah, please introduce yourselves to our guests because I know we know you, but a lot of them might not be familiar with you just yet. And we get to do this new introduction.
Yay. Well, first I just have to say, oh my God, thank you so much for having me on. It's such an exciting opportunity to get to talk about things that aren't necessarily just promoting your book and being able to sit down and connect with people in the community. So I'm so excited. Thank you. I'm Sarah Zimm. I'm a dark fantasy romance writer. I grew up in Wisconsin and I still live here in the Midwest. I'm also a mom and a wife. My husband is a musician, so we are like super into live music and the community. I'm a yoga junkie when I get in the flow, in the habit. Right now I'm not in the super flow, in the habit, but I normally really love it. And we are just like go, go, go all the time, it feels like. But I'm super into reheating tea. And I say reheating because it always goes cold. I don't know.
Same.
Is it like a prerequisite of tea drinkers? Like you forget you make the water and then you remake it and then you have it, but then you forget to drink it. So you reheat it. I don't know if that's just me. So yeah.
It is not just you.
I had like a little like a cup warmer
I
right
need,
here before. Yeah, it's a candle warmer or cup warmer. You can use it for
That's what
both.
I was about to say. Candle warmer. Use the
Seriously,
same.
it works. It works amazing.
I am making
$10
I'm
on Amazon.
I'm making a note. I need one. That would that would be the best. Oh my God. But besides tea, yeah, I feel like I spend most of my time doing writerly things these days just because life is so crazy, but I really do like those sort of down moments between projects where you're able to kind of get back to like, oh yeah, I actually really like to go like ride my bike around town. I really like to do, like go out to dinner and see people, and go to live music shows and go do arty things that have nothing to do with writing books. So yeah, I feel like I'm just like this perpetual creative junkie, like any kind of medium, that you can consume. So like really into movies, really into Netflix and binge stuff. Uh, yeah, I just vacillate between all these different creative mediums, I feel like.
Well, it sounds like your house is completely conducive for that, because if your husband's a musician and you not a magician, a music what? That's not even a word. Musician?
It's a mix.
This is life with me
Oh
and
my gosh.
Randy.
So
We
your
create.
husband does music. He is an artist in that sense, and you write. So your house is like full of this creativity from both sides.
It is. It is like it's just kind of like an incubator of all the things, and they're very different mediums. So my husband is like really creative in a different way. Like he can sit at a piano. He's never played piano before in his life, and he'll just like hear the notes and whatever. I grew up playing piano, and I am like the one who's like by the sheet. Like I follow along with the notes, and I have to have that until I memorize it. But yeah, I'm so envious of people who have talents in different creative lanes, and you're just like, how do you do this? How does your brain is like freakish, and where he can just do that. So that's amazing. And then he probably looks at a blank piece of paper and is just like, oh, how do you even like, how do you
Or he
even
has, like, my husband has an idea and he's like, "How do I get this idea to cooperate with the rest of the story?" Like, I hear you, buddy.
exactly. I remember in college, like, friends would come and be like, oh, you like to write, would you want to maybe write my English essay for me?
Not that kind of
Like,
writing,
not that
buddy.
kind of writing.
Not that kind of writing. May have done that one time, never did it again.
That's a side gig. That's like, sure, it's $500.
Pay me for
Oh
it.
my gosh, right? Back in the day in college when you're just like have no money and you're like, I will do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I find that things like that are very, when I have too many constraints around what I'm writing, it sucks all the creativity out of it. Like the fun is gone. The experience of writing is very, it's sometimes, even with outlining, I outline quite a bit. It is very like exciting to experience the story as it's unfolding, and it's like creating itself almost. I don't like, if it's was very constrained and I had all these rules and regulations and someone telling me what to write, I don't think it wouldn't feed my creativity.
100%. What do they call that? Like people, plantsters, is that the term for people who do like some plotting, but then they like to pants like in between, maybe?
Maybe,
I
yeah.
think when I first started writing, I wrote a book. It was right after COVID, maybe. I had like a 2-year-old at the time and was just refinding my creative purpose outside of being a new mom and a lot of darker things that had been going on in life. And I had to teach myself how to write a book. So I'm like, I've written in the past, but I've never actually finished a book. So like I have to figure out how to like get what I need to finish a book and how to structure a story. And outside of that, like I think that was so over plotted that it took me longer because it was harder to come back to it and I was getting bored. And then with my debut that I actually ended up publishing, that was much more of discovery writing, like for the joy of it. And then I'm like, okay, now I don't know where it's going. So maybe I should plot out at least the next, 10% of the book. And yeah, guardrails, but like giving yourself room to have conversations with your characters and let them kind of help drive the story. I love that.
100%.
So what did you do to teach yourself how to finish?
Yeah,
Like, what was that process?
so I would say I'm not like a learner by strength. I like to learn what I like to learn, but if you tell me to go learn something, I'm like, ugh. But this was something that I just, I have been writing since I was very little, and life takes you kind of different paths and coming back to writing again. And I was like, what was it about long form writing that just never allowed me to like finish a project? Like what was happening? And I think I just, as a reader, you get an instinct about what needs to happen and kind of what needs to go where. but I knew that I needed just like some kind of guidelines of like, what are kind of the plot points and what does that all mean, and understanding reader expectations for the genre that you're writing in. So I found some really good blogs out there. There's one called Helping Writers Become Authors. Every time I feel like I kind of need a therapy session or like a pick me up or a reminder that, oh, I've written a book, I can write another one. She's a really great source. She just writes really great stuff. And I also have three other authors that have you guys ever used that app called Marco Polo? It's like a video message app.
No, I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's super cool. It's kind of like video memos to each other. And so I have a small writing group that we draft together. And it's an incredible support system to have other writers who either are in your genre or kind of in the same place in their journeys, or maybe not, people who've been in it for a long time and can share their wisdom. So this group I have that we draft together every year, we have a really good mix. Like we have someone who's been writing for 10 to 15 years and has published a lot of books, both in contemporary romance and she's also writing fantasy. And then we have someone who just published her dark romantasy debut in January. So it's kind of in between. And it's just been so incredible where someday I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Even though I've written 2 books, I'm so stuck to just be able to get on the app and be like, okay, here's my problem. Can you guys talk me out of it? So
Yeah, having that support system of people who like understand where you're at, that's really important and huge, I think, because you mentioned it earlier, and I don't think people understand how isolating writing can be. Like, it's not like we go and we are, because I don't know about you, but sometimes I can't even listen to music with words in it and write at the same time. So, like, having other people have a conversation in the same room or things like that, like, it's not something I can do. So yeah, it's so isolating. And having people that you're like, oh yeah, I can have this community, I can have these conversations, I can go to people who understand what I'm struggling with. I think that's really huge because I think there's a possibility of writers who don't have that getting into more of the dark places where they start going down, depressive episodes and whatnot when they don't have that support system.
you can get so in your head when you're writing. It's incredible that, the confidence that ebbs and flows as you're wherever you are in the journey of a book, or if you're in between books and you're not writing and not feeling like productive. Yeah, those places can get really lonely. Um, so grateful for people who, you know, there are dark sides to social media, but I actually that's where I met my writing group. So, I mean, there's shadow sides to everything. And I feel like social media is one of those things that, if you're in that sort of vacuum of not having a community you can talk like this with, that can sort of exacerbate those feelings of loneliness and feeling like I'm on the outside looking in of all this so-called success that everyone else is experiencing. So to have people who can kind of bring you back and remind you that this is such a journey, like this is a long game. Books have
Yeah.
such a long shelf life, but I don't know. It's really hard sometimes to not want that like more instant gratification. And so I think in those times where you're feeling like that's not happening, like I'm not getting book reviews or I'm not selling as much as I want, then it's like, take a step back and talk to your people and be reminded that you've got this. This is a long journey that so many of us are in together. But yeah, going back to what you said about writing, sensory, like I'm the same. I can't have music on. I can't be distracted. I can't have my phone next to me. Basically, like throw me in like a sensory deprivation tank room. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like I can't even sit at a desk. I have to sit on the floor, hunched over like a writing gremlin, like typing on my laptop, like kind of tilted up at me. And
Yeah.
we just to feel so grounded in a scene and in a moment, and then you come out of it and you're like, where was I and what have I missed in life?
Where was I in real life? Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like outside of like your writing support system, like some people don't have the family who understands what it is, or can support you and with just like, hey, I need to go disappear in a fantasy world for 2 hours. Can you make sure that our kid gets fed and like all
Right.
the basic things, you know? So I'm really, really lucky that my husband is he I feel like if he had sort of like a purpose in life, it's he takes it upon himself to make our lives easier and to make this possible. And sometimes it makes you feel so selfish as a writer. But just giving him all of the gratitude and thanks for everything he does to let this.
I like what you said about writing being the long game because so many people do not understand like you're so right on that because the amount of effort that we put in on the front end versus the payoff is it's very tipped on the balance. We put in so much effort and get so little payoff in the beginning that sometimes it even takes 10 years for that one book you did to, really start making progress in the way that you want it to where it might be supporting your family full time. And there's authors who have been writing for even longer than that, and they don't make it big until, they pass away even. And that's that's not the long game any of us are wanting to put to play, but that's the reality of it. Like so many works have become famous after they perish. We are in the other long game, hopefully, where it's like sometimes or 10 years later down the line is when we really start seeing the payoff.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, 100%. I have some friends who will just put out there like, I'm putting my kind of, what you're putting out into the universe, they want to get back, right? So they're like, I will just be honest with myself. Like, I want to do this to make money. So they're willing to say, I'm going to write in genres that are really hot right now. I'm going to write to expectations and I'm going to do it with the sole purpose of like making as much as I can. And I think as long as you go into it knowing exactly what you want and understanding what that experience is going to require of you and you're game for that, that's great. I have a really hard time writing to, for example, like I know romance and dark romance especially is like really hot right now. Like
Yeah.
my feed, social feed is filled with that. And I love that for people who love those genres. It's not my genre. And I think when you write fantasy, especially, it does feel like a longer game sometimes because the market is so saturated. There's so much out there. You're learning how to write as a writer. You're finding your audience, and it's a little. I feel like it's a genre that is. It takes longer to write because you're building so much, world, and sometimes it takes people longer to get into it too because you have to come into these books that have a lot of world building sometimes and be like, okay, I'm ready for that. It's not like you.
The notepad, they have, all the other resources.
Yeah, yeah. So I think so much of what we do is setting a healthy mindset for ourselves, and that can be really, really challenging to do.
No kidding, because a lot of times we come to writing because we're in an unhealthy place or we have trauma that we don't know how to deal with. So we come to writing to kind of like move through that trauma. And then we realize a passion for it. We realize, oh my gosh, I love telling stories. And so we're here for, the career and for the passion of actually doing this full time. And yeah, some of us, I think this is a happy accident because I think you're similar in this situation. Writing was something you did as a kid, but it was something that you found passionately after some dark places, right?
Yeah, when I was a kid, well, I was a little obsessed as a kid too. And I was like an only child until I was 4. So my brother and I had a lot of years between us. And this is like such a silly story, but I remember watching a movie with, Funny Farm. Have you ever seen that with Chevy Chase?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So in the movie, it's this character, Andy, who really wants to be an author. So him and his wife go buy like basically this junker house out in the country. And he's going to like write this book, the next great novel. And, everything like snowballs downhill from there. And, anyways, his wife ends up becoming like a famous children's author and really great instead. And so
No.
jealousy ensues and it's hysterical, but I don't know what it was about that movie. And I was just like, oh my God, if he can write a book, like I love reading. I was obsessed with reading. Like I couldn't read enough as a kid. And I was like, okay, hurry up and learn how to write. I want to like be able to write. And So then, yeah, I would go everywhere. Like my mom used to work at a hospital and go in on Saturdays. She was in medical transcription, so always typing on the typewriter. And she would stick me in front of an electric typewriter, and I would just make up stories. And it was like the best. Hours would just disappear. And so as a
Yeah.
kid, I was like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to be an author. I got my own typewriter eventually, and I thought, yep, I'm going to write young adult romance. And then I finished my first book, right? It was like 3 months. I typed it all up, and I'm like, I'm going to send this off to New York publishers, and I'm going to be like a 14-year-old published author. That's the kind of confidence you have when you're,
That is
14.
beautiful. I love that.
And I'm like, man, I could really use some of her bravery today, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I really wanted to write when I was younger, and was totally that kid that brought in short stories I had written to my English teacher and kind of slipped it to her on the side and was like, hey, can you tell me if this is good? I think even in college, my first year, I was like, okay, I'm going to enter this writing competition. And I did. And I got like second place or something. And then you get distracted. And I was like, well, but I also want to be a mom and I got to make money. So I ended up going the journalism.
Make money thing.
Yes, right? Like capitalism. Ugh. Um, so I ended up in college going for journalism because I was like, well, I love telling stories. I love connecting one-on-one with people and just peeling back their layers. And so that's the route I went. And I was in a journalist for almost 4 years for Gannett newspapers, and got to cover like my favorite area, which was art, entertainment, that kind of stuff. Told a lot of the stories. And we have like this bin downstairs of like super old school newspaper clippings. But got to like meet Johnny Depp when they were filming Public Enemies and in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and got to interview like Aaron Rodgers, and it was
I'm a Packers
I
fan. That's so cool.
it was like he was kind of like a newborn baby in football at the time. Like Brett Favre was still
That was
playing.
back when I hated him then.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I just remember like sitting at the table sometime when I was like, at the time I wasn't as into sports, and I was like, you know what? I just want to ask him like, how do you deal with all this fame? Because it seems like I'm kind of introverted, and I don't think I could handle that level of whatever they go through. But yeah, I didn't like to be a reporter in the sense of going up cold to people and bothering them, but I loved just when I got on the phone with people and just connecting and hearing their stories. So that was really great. And so much of why I love the format of your podcast. It reminds me a little bit of that, but also of when I was starting to get away from journalism and go toward more communications. I worked for this really small comedy club in my town, jack of all trades, but we started this like blog, and it was behind the mic. And so I got to interview all of these comedians, stand-up comics as they were coming through. And I'm like, what is your life? Like just
Yeah.
crazy, crazy stories.
Behind the jokes. That's what it should have been called.
I love it in hindsight, right? Yeah. So I think eventually, though, what happened was, yeah, some dark places. And I was probably 9 months pregnant with my son in 2018. And kind of like heard rumblings from my mom that, oh, your dad's not been feeling great. And literally the day or a couple days after I had my son, we found out my dad had kidney cancer. And so it was really fast. Like within 3 months, we had lost him. And yeah, you're just like, this person who's like your hero, your whole life. And I had this newborn baby that I'm just not, he was not a sleeper. So the mental health was just really, really hard. You're grieving and you're trying to be in this role as a new mom. And I think it took like a year of just getting your footing. And like the thing that's great about kids, I think, is that they keep you very present as much, that's like a benefit, I think,
Yeah.
of being in that situation. Was I had to be a mom. It was like survival.
Yeah. You couldn't lose yourself too far into the darkness.
Oh my gosh, it's so much so. And after he got to be like about a year old, I was starting to feel like, okay, I think I'm ready for like the next thing, right? Like, what is my purpose? I remember um, when I was still pregnant, my dad was in our kitchen with us. We were like eating pizza, and I don't know why I remember this, but he was eating pineapple, and I remember thinking like, my dad likes pineapple. I never knew that about him, but I remember it because he told me like, he's like, what are you going to do after you have our son's name is Fox? What are you going to do after you have him? And I was like, well, going back to work, like, oh, I don't really want to. I have to. He's like, never stop working. Work gives you purpose. And that's just like one of those little nuggets of wisdom that kept rolling around in my head, like for the next year or two of like, what did he mean by that? Like, did he really mean like my job? Because at the time I didn't love the job I was in. And I said, I think what he's talking about is just like finding something that gives you purpose outside of these other roles that you have. Like, what gives you that called feeling? And I just kept coming back, like, no matter the creative pursuits that I had kind of gone down these different paths in life, it was always writing. And it was always like you have these stories inside you. And yeah, man, like the dark stuff that you're talking about. I mean, losing my dad, and then we lost my husband's mom a few years later, losing your dog, like, your beloved dog. And then really unexpectedly last year, my brother to epilepsy. And so I think writing is just such a like a lifeline, such a therapy. Um,
Yeah.
I remember going on this little writing retreat with myself to a bed and breakfast in southern Wisconsin, sitting in a bed there, and I was having panic attacks. Like, I'd never had them my whole life, but after losing my brother, my grandmother was about to pass too, and just like, oh my God, I'm in this like bed and breakfast alone, worried, like, what am I going to do if I have a panic attack? You just feel like you're dying.
Yeah. Yep.
And so,
Suffer of panic attacks.
yes, it's the worst, and it's so hard to explain to people, but it's horrible. And so I'm sitting on this bed in this bed and breakfast with my laptop, trying to write and having a really hard time controlling like those ruminating thoughts. And I don't. It's such a hard thing to explain, but I knew I had to write this scene in the second book I'm about to release, where the main character and one of these like childhood friends that she have reunite after this just traumatic experience that he's had. And she's like realizing how close she came to losing her, literally her only family. He's like been a brother to her. And it was like something just took over. And there's this moment in the scene where he tells her like, it's all right, it's all right. And she's like, I didn't realize how much I needed someone to just tell me it's all right. And I'm just like sobbing through this scene. Like, it was just such a moment of like my brother, even my dad, just like this feeling of them saying, it's okay to be okay. Like, you don't have to feel this guilt that you survived. You can be okay. And, don't waste a minute of your life continuing to live in the dark and the sadness, because you're here for a reason and you've got stories to tell. So yeah, it was just that moment. And I'm really grateful that it stayed in the book, and I'll just remember it forever.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've suppressed with dad passing away. You're like, okay, I gotta be mom, gotta push this stuff down, gotta push it down and just be mom and truck on. And then, all these other things just kind of kept hitting you. And so often, especially as, parents and people who are trying to also manage other people, we put on these faces. We put on these, I'm brave, I can handle this, I got this, and we just push through life. When we do that, we end up creating moments like that, and sometimes they're beautiful. They come out in beautiful they can be beautiful ways. If we suppress, we're going to express in another way, and you express through writing. Often people don't get that luxury of it being beautiful and turns into this, very emotional connection piece within your story. A lot of times it turns into more uglier things, but I think that's what's so awesome about writing is we express our pain so often in things that we're trying to suppress in ways we're not realizing. Like, we put our emotions into our books, and then we go back and we'll look at it later and be like, "Oh, actually that was me, that character's downfall was an argument that I was having with my parent in my head or something." Right? And then it doesn't, unless you actually look at it through that lens, you don't realize what you're putting into your books.
That is so true. I mean, this is like a rare example. That scene I was talking about was like one, but yeah, I'll go back like when I do read throughs right before something publishes, and I'm like, oh yeah, wow, I was really processing, some stuff there. I didn't even didn't even realize it. And I think sometimes like, oh man, my mom is like reading or read my first book, and I'm thinking to myself like, oh, I hope she doesn't think that like, these characters don't have moms, or they just have like really tough times with their moms, or like this mom is a terrible character. Like, yeah, mom, it's not about you. But we bring it all. We bring it all to the story in some way, and it is always a surprise when the way it shows up. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
to
I
know
like
that
that.
that
I
is
like you're
healing,
like,
right? Like that was healing for you, but also that you're bringing some healing to someone else who's reading that and could be going through something similar, or have gone through something similar. I mean, I think there's so much power in writing and reading. I think that people don't give it enough credit for that.
yeah, the connection piece is huge when you realize that, oh, there's other people who are struggling through this. And just like you said, it's not about you, mom. It's not just about that situation, but it's a story that many people go through. And even though I'm telling this in great detail, it seems like I might be going through it. I'm just a creative author who can dive into other people's worlds.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing how I don't know if you guys are like this, but when you step back and look at what are the themes that I tend to like gravitate toward exploring in my writing, I thought about that the other day, and I was like, wow, there is some dark stuff here. But I always feel really called. Like my characters have pretty tragic backstories. Like I don't have a lot of characters who have had, easy lives. Um, a lot of like tragedy in their life that they're overcoming trauma. Um, like this theme of weakness as strength, like empathy, for example, in one of my books, like this character is always getting told, like, the fact that you're so empathetic is really your downfall. But how can that be a strength too? Um, and like just these concepts of like dark and light, I think is really prevalent in fantasy in general. But I think that there's a reason, like, we are exploring parts of ourselves that we don't maybe share with other people, and we feel safe to do that on the page through these characters. And yeah, it's incredible.
Well, I think especially with the dark romantasy and dark fantasy books, excuse me, you guys tap into something that a lot of people are scared to tap into, and that is that darkness is some of our best growth moments. Like, if
It's
we don't
true.
go through the uncomfortable spots, if we don't go through and sit in the heavy moments, we a lot of times can't reach the potential that we can. And being comfortable in the uncomfortable and not shying, you can still be afraid of the darkness, you can still be afraid of that, but not shying away from it to the point that you like close it off, shut it off, anything that makes you feel negative thoughts, anything that makes you have negative emotions whatsoever. Shutting that off is limiting yourself to the potential of what you can do.
That is so true. I mean,
It's so true.
when people talk about failure, right? Like those are the learning moments. Like how much do you learn when you win? The wins feel really great after struggling for so long, but I think as human beings, we're just programmed to like we're programmed to almost need and want the struggle. Like, have you met people, or like I sometimes feel like, am I just addicted to the struggle? Why do I keep putting myself in these situations where I have to be super uncomfortable and grow? But I think you either grow or you literally die, right? Like you wither. You have to always be growing and like thinking about how can I make myself just a little more uncomfortable. And in our writing, we talk about like I always compare like my first drafts and my last drafts. I'm in like the puppy stage of this draft. I'm afraid to commit, afraid to have my characters be to this, to that. And like by the third revision, I'm like, now we've got a dragon. This is great, but you have to go through the fear. You have to face it. So
Yeah, I like that. I like you called it the puppy stage. That was cute.
I asked my writer friends, like, okay, I feel like this is a bit of a puppy. I want it to be a dragon. Help me write bravely. Like, where can I just commit here? So
Yeah. But also, that's the process of writing in general, right? Like when we start off with our characters, we don't know them as well as we should to be able to tell their story. By the time we get to the end of the book and we start back over, you know the actions that's going to lead them to the final resolution. So you're like, okay, this person that's going to end up there wouldn't do this thing that I originally had them do.
100%. And it's like you have to remind yourself that it literally is. Somebody way smarter than me has said it in the past about shoveling sand into a sandbox. Like you need the sand there to be able to make a sand castle. So just like put it on the page. And as somebody who like grew up kind of like type A perfectionist, like it is really hard for me to like just plow through a draft and get it on the page. Um, it's hard for me to go back and like edit something that feels so overwhelming that needs so much work. And so I've learned to have to like edit in sections as I go. And I don't know if that's the right way. I feel like it probably takes longer, but you have to kind of know yourself and like what your process needs to be.
Really, whatever works for you is the right way.
Right.
Because that's
Yeah,
not gonna that might not
100%.
work for Randie or any other author.
Yeah. And that was something we were talking about earlier that I wanted to touch on too, was like the people who plot out really really hard. Like my husband, if he ever were to become an author, he would have to do that. He would not be able to start writing a book without knowing how it's going to end 5 books down the line. Like he wouldn't commit. And that's just how some people's brains work. I'm in between. I need my ADHD reined in enough that my creativity can take over and we don't end up in Narnia and oh, someone already wrote this book.
Uh-huh. How do you tend to like start? Does it come to you with like, does it vary? Is it usually like, oh my God, I saw this scene, I had a dream about it? Or it's like, no, I already just know the ending, or yeah.
Yeah, it varies for me. Sometimes I will be inspired by other stories and I see characters like their chemistry with each other and I'm like, I love that, but what if it was different? And that is often how it happens, but I've had another book that I have started on where it came from a D&D session where me and my husband were playing together and the chemistry between our characters and the storyline, I was like, okay, I now need to write this into a story. And I've had other times where it's just a scene. I'm like, this song in this one particular sentence makes me think of a scene and I'm like, I need to write that scene and then I'll develop the world around it. And so it varies. Whatever inspires me at the time, I'm like, my notes are insane on how not organized and how they make no sense.
And they're everywhere, right? Like literally every device. And I have, if you'd see my wall, like it's not pretty in my office. It's like in front of me, I'm staring at a wall that is like colored Post-it notes that has like really random outlining type stuff that will make sense to nobody.
Man,
Yeah, I
hopefully a
was
big
very
like gust
similar.
of wind doesn't come through there and
Right.
then you'd have like you'd be putting it together, it'd be a completely different book. Maybe you should do that just to
Yeah.
like
Mix it
See
up.
what happens.
mix it up.
You're giving Sarah anxiety right now.
No, I have, I think you go through stages, right? Like I could probably actually take the whole thing off because it's like, that's just the spitball stuff. And then the next part is really a little bit more refined where I am actually putting notes into like a document I keep next to my drafting document. And that becomes like further along. So there's so much refinement that happens. Like it's
I think that's part of being an author is figuring out your process. Like the beginning stages of writing is just kind of like you said, putting the sand into the sandbox. That it's the same thing with our systems. We're just putting stuff together and it might not be the most conducive, but we have to put something together or we're never going to have a finalized book.
so true. I use Scrivener. Well, I tried to use Scrivener for drafting. Like at first it was Word. And then I was like, ooh, I really like this program that lets me have cork boards and lets me like see my word count like by scene. And that was great. But I'm like, I think I'm over engineering myself and I'm not actually writing, I'm organizing. And so I had to go back. I do use Scrivener for like my, I call them orange notes. They're kind of just like, brain dump of what I know is going to happen at some point. And then I just go back to Word. I'm back in my simple,
Old school.
old school.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen authors like use these fancy Excel documents where they literally do every scene. I tried that and I was like, that's too hard to maintain. I can't do it.
Yeah. I've like you, I've played with different things. I started off where I was handwriting my books. And then I went back and I was like, listen, I can't read half of this because once I start going, it's like this is just chicken scratch. So I scrapped that. Went in, it's just a bunch of different figuring out what works because that was very flowy, right? We have to have the balance between our flowy and our creativity, and there does have to be structure. Like especially with writing novels and bigger stories, we have to figure out how to structure it.
Hmm. And your day
And
too, right? Like we talked about transitions before, and like I can write when it's like when your brain is fresh, like you get up in the morning. If I could make myself get up 5:30 every morning, it's kind of this like out of a dreamy stage. Your brain is
mm,
not like yet been attacked by everything you have to do. And it's
you
just,
don't have to limit yourself as much.
yeah, and you're not feeling so judgmental about yourself and your own work. It's just very flowy
As
and
long as you don't look in the mirror before you go and start working.
percent. And so I really do sometimes will do like a little sprint in the morning if I get an idea. I love those mornings. Um, but usually it's like writing ends up being the last thing I do at night when everyone's asleep. I've spent time with everybody, taken a shower, and it's like, oh God, it's 9 o'clock already. Okay. How much, energy do you have at that point in the day? So it can be a struggle. I always am just amazed when anybody publishes a book. I'm like, do you know literally how hard that is that you just did that? Like, yeah,
Hair flip. We get you. No, it's yeah, I get it. It is exhausting. Um, but it's so I don't know if you experience this, but when I'm not writing, I'm thinking about writing. When I'm not, even when I'm watching movies and I'm listening to songs and I'm like, I will piece together my world into whatever I'm writing. Like just different things will inspire me of like, oh, I need to write a scene between these two characters that makes me feel like they're listening to this song, or the way that this movie played out and these characters, did something unexpected. How can I do something like that in my books? Or I'll just sit there and think about my actual characters. And it's like I know that this is my passion because I can't step away from it. I cannot just leave writing.
no, it's an obsession, right? You have to be a little crazy to do this, like, because you do sacrifice so much personally for your family. And you're constantly in that world and distracted. And yeah, like you said, obsessed with it. Uh, it's just something like, again, like you feel like you're called to do. And I know people will say like, "Oh, I have on my bucket list to write a book." People will tell me that sometimes, like, "Oh, I always wanted to write a book," and I'm always like, "Tell me more about that." Like, because I think wanting to, explore it someday is a lot different than just like this incessant need to like get constantly distracted. When you're in the drafting phase. I love the drafting phase. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone has a story to tell. Like Kathy talks about her life and stuff, and when she talks about it, it's passionate, right? And I'm like, I want to hear a story about that.
I have a lot of stories.
What do you think you
I
would
always
write
said,
about?
um, probably my bestie. Our lives have kind of like correlated each other, like mirrored each other, even though we haven't been like together. Like we live in separate. She lives in Colorado, and I'm in Tampa, or she's in Texas now. But like even before when we weren't really completely, like we'd met in church, and then we both left the church, and then we kind of separated. But our lives like correlated each other, like things that we experienced, and shitty husbands, and we had 3 kids, and I mean, just so many different things. And ever since then, and I'm not kidding you, it is the creepiest damn thing. But like, it still continues to do that. Like my second husband, it didn't work out like pretty quickly. And then she got married and he was a piece of shit. And that didn't work out. And I mean, so literally just like a couple weeks ago, I'm like, can we just like agree that before either of us like goes into a relationship, like we have to agree to this. Like we're not gonna have this, but it is crazy weird. So we've always said that we should write a book because it would be both. Yeah, it would both be very dark, but also hilarious because we've been through so much. But probably mostly finding myself through all of the struggles and the trials and the things that I've had to go through, and how I could help other women learn and get the courage to make the decision to make a change and to find themselves eventually, and hopefully help them avoid some of the pitfalls and stupid ass decisions that I did along the way. But that's probably what I would write about is finding yourself and making that journey to I don't know, being okay with where you're at. And it's taken a long time, but yeah, I'm there. I'm getting there. Almost there.
I had goosebumps. I would totally read something like that. And I think that would be so brave. And like to get to do it with your friends. I'm always amazed at people who do co-writing projects. I have some author friends who can do that, and they're just like besties and on the same page. And I think that would be so powerful.
Yeah. When maybe when she's still healing in hers from her second marriage, or second marriage. But yeah, it's crazy. Like there's I can't even tell you how many times I'll text her and be like, this is so fucking eerie. Like, what? How does this keep happening? I don't understand.
You guys have like a soul level connection, right? Like,
100% soul sisters.
yeah.
100%. I mean, and I, through this whole thing, like I believe like she's 100% my soulmate. Like I don't believe that soulmates just have to be like a romantic, you know, whatever. Like she is 100% my soulmate. Like I could not do life without her for sure. It would be,
Mhm.
but yeah,
I
it
love
would
that. I
be.
agree with that too. The soulmate thing, just the connection with humans. I think male, female, it doesn't matter. If you connect with someone, it's yeah, you need to write that book, Kathy. We're waiting for it.
And like the fantasy.
Dude, I gotta get it and then get it into audiobook. I'd have to figure out who I would have
Right.
narrate it.
Yeah, Kathy's going to be the first person ever who writes a book without it actually being a book first. It's just going to go straight to audiobook first.
There's a market for it. I love audiobooks when you're like driving somewhere, when you're like, some people say I can't do that when I'm driving. I feel like I can do that. I love to just anytime you can work a story in, and that's like the perfect time. That or like making dinner or something. Yeah.
Mhm. Cleaning, all the
That's
mundane
how
tasks that
I
we
really
hate.
got into
Yeah.
audiobook was road trips
Yeah.
because I was
Yeah.
driving cross country a lot
Yeah.
I
between
always think
Texas
about like
and Florida.
when you see people in the airport and like I've caught screens like, oh, they're listening to something. I'm always like, what are they listening to? I'm always amazed at people's poker faces because you've seen like sometimes what they're listening to, and I'm like, you are, yeah, like when we're reading
Yep.
like more of a dark romantasy or dark romance, and you're like, what's in there, or you see someone reading like Haunting Adeline or some just like
Lights
total,
out or something. Yeah.
yeah, and you're like, I know what's going. I see you.
Yeah, those people, especially when it starts getting into like the darker and like the people who like can hurt you that you aren't expecting them to, I will start assuming everyone around me, like I can't do the too dark. I will start paranoing myself into a circle, and I'm like, "Oh my God, what if my husband, what if my best friend, what if my like, it's I can't even listen into like the talk shows that talk about like murderers and stuff. I will start
The
putting
true
everyone in my
crime
life
stuff.
into those positions. Yes.
I had that moment. We took my son to a basketball game the other week, and looking in the stands, and right, this is author brain, where you're thinking about like, it's basically like you're Googling, but you're kind of just observing instead, to get information. You're like always that person of like people watching. And I'm like thinking to myself, there's got to be like thousands of people here, right? At least one of these people probably has done something like real bad, and then you start to think about that, and you're like, oh God.
Oh my gosh, I have a story to tell you now. So, something funny that our family does, and I never thought I would tell this to like anyone, is we will like, especially when we go for breakfast, we'll go like IHOP or like somewhere. When we're waiting for the food, our family will make up stories for the people that are in there eating. Like, especially if it's out of town and we don't actually know anybody. Me and my husband, we like doing this, especially when it's just me and him, because we can get a lot darker and deeper and whatnot. But my kids do it too, and they're so funny with the way they come up with stories. But that is like a pastime for us when we are people watching.
Man, you could get some spicy shit going on with that. How fun.
Me and my husband have, and I'm like, I'm gonna write that shit down.
Relationship goals next time.
Yeah.
My husband likes when I'm reading romantic stuff. I will just leave it at that, right?
I bet he does.
When I remember when oh god, I feel like I'm dating myself. This must have been like when we were engaged and not married yet. But like 50 Shades of Grey came out and it was like the whole thing, right? Like I feel like
All the baby
oh
T-shirts
my
that's like,
god.
I'm the product of 50 Shades of Grey on onesies.
Yeah, and to like know I had coworkers telling me like, "Oh yeah, I'm reading this, I'm reading," and like to just know each other. That's just like knowing people on a different level to know what they're reading, like what
With
they're
saying
into.
like one sentence.
Yes, yes. Even today, like I'll meet new people that I work for a marketing firm, like a small marketing firm, where I'm from, part time. And anytime we have like new people come in, we do these really cool like one-on-one chats, and I'm always like, "So what do you read?" Like I like to go deep, and I feel like it gives you so much insight into people. Like, are they nonfiction? Are they like autobiographies? Or like, no, I'm reading like Sarah J. Maas, or I'm reading like if they're in the dark romance. I haven't met anyone who's admitted to that lane yet, but I think all books
Oh
are
my
great.
gosh.
Whatever you need for
Dark
healing, whatever you
romance,
need.
reverse harem, like, yeah.
Hmm.
Kathy's jam.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get DMs with people because like one of my books has three main characters that are men that are important in this main character's life, and they're like, is it going to be White Shoes? Is it going to be White Shoes? And I'm like, I'm sorry.
Like, calm down, Linda.
Not that I haven't read that, but I haven't written that, so yeah.
Yeah.
Would you write
I
it?
I think I would someday. I don't think it's where I'm at right now. I mean, I don't hate it. Personally, I have like, I'm always just like, I write these characters that are too jealous. Like, they naturally just show up on the page that way to me. They're like, I don't share. I want what's mine. They're a little possessive. I don't know what that says about me, but I just tend to like have characters who are like, she's mine. Like, you're not having her. And their battles ensue, right? Like, that sort of like alpha male energy. And yeah, I'm more of like even though it's not, I don't know if it's like trending right now. I hear it's coming back, but like twists on love triangles. Like, I'm not like, I hate the miscommunication trope. I'm like, just talk to each other. There's way more juicy like conflict if you just like make characters talk to each other. But I feel like love triangles can give you that if they're well done. And so
Yeah. So okay, hang on. This is a debate between me and Kathy, and I need to know where you fall on this. Do you like love triangles?
I like to work through them. I like a resolution. Like, I want it to make sense. I don't like it for the sake of there being like, just the writer's like, I need conflict, so I'm going to give them two love interests. I like it when their backstories are so deep and that there's just a true reason why you feel for them and you root for them, even if it's not an active love triangle. Like, I don't love it where the main character has like, say, two men, and she's like dating both of them, or like, doing kind of the both and situation. I like it more when she might not even know that she has these feelings for this other person, but they have feelings for her. And there's just feelings all over the place, right? When it's messy. I like the messy.
Yes. You mean the human element to it?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
The
like it
complex.
that one person's going to get hurt. That's why I don't like love triangles. Like, give me the white shoes. Everybody is happy in the end. That's cool. But the love triangles, no, because somebody's going to get hurt, and I'm not about that. I'm like
I
a number
feel that. And
two.
that's why I
No.
feel like you need a twist. You need a twist on it. Like, I have to give at the end of the day, like, I don't like that either. I like the character who is kind of not going to be the person with them in the end. I like for them to find their own happiness or come to the realization that it wasn't meant to be through the journey, and to see like all along this other thing was in front of me, or this was my true path. Like, so that you're not leaving readers feeling like it truly was teens, like this was always meant to be. If you look at the clues and you look at all of the little things along the way, that hopefully the writer has like given you that feeling of satisfaction.
I think you described that very, very well. And now that I think about it, like there's a couple where I've like one of the characters have been like just completely left in the dust. But I do like that resolution with them too. And that's so often in life where we think this one path is our path. And then we're like, all of our emotions are poured into that, but then something is revealed, the bigger picture, and they realize that third person, the third wheel or whatever. It is very real life for them to move on to something else and to realize that their passions are in different areas. I like that.
Are you guys in the happily ever after camp? You like books to end
Mm,
happy, or are you cool with like, I know like in some genres like horror, or like paranormal horror, like crossover kind of genres like that, there's authors I really really love, and then we'll get to the end and I'm like, ooh, maybe I wanted a little more happy than I got, but I get it,
I'm
it's
a
real
happily
life.
ever after person. Yes.
yeah, I think I write to make people think it's not going to be happily ever after, but I don't enjoy not happily ever afters. Like, and it doesn't have to be happily ever after the way they envisioned. It can be happily ever after, and this was not how anyone was expecting this to go.
Yep. I'm that way too. I need it to have some kind of happy resolution. Like, I love symmetry in books. So, like, there's a lot of different cues you can give readers for that satisfying symmetry. But, like, if a book starts in one place at the end of the series, they go back to that place and they've grown and it's so different and they're changed as people. Like, there's something so satisfying about that as a reader. And if you can give them something they never thought that they wanted. This is what you needed, and all along. Oh, I love that. I love that symmetry.
Yeah. And that means you have to plan a little bit.
Love it.
Because that doesn't typically happen naturally.
Yeah. Do you, when you write, do you, or do any projects, like, do you tend to like um, write and then put it out into the world and then go on to the next thing, or do you write from like beginning to end first and then push it out?
I'm still developing my craft on that. I have two books that are published right now where we just wrote, and it was with a co-author, and we just wrote. We didn't really plan the end or anything, and we pushed it out. Now I'm like, I would go back and change so much in those books. So now I'm like, I need to plan at least the end of the series. I need to kind of make it make sense. And what ends up happening is I'm like 2 books into this new series and realize there's a freaking origin story that needs to be told before I can even finish the second book. So I have next year for me is going to be huge. I have 5 books that will be coming out next year because I am not satisfied with what I've done in the past, where like Brandon Sanderson's books, if you've read his, between 3 books that are over 100,000 words, the ending of the last book and the first chapter, the first paragraph in the first book, they connect together in a way that is so beautiful and is so inspiring as, like you said, a balanced writer. I have to produce work like that. I have to change people's lives to the point that when they finish my last book in the series, they're like, "Oh my gosh, that first paragraph ties into this."
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
that's my goals.
But I love that goal, and the same. And I think that's my one regret is um, I'm not a patient person by nature. Like, I really
It's so
struggle with
freaking
that.
beta readers hold me over.
I'm so like, well, and when you go through this loss in life, right, too, you're getting this message of like, God, life is so short. Don't wait. Do what you want to do. Like, if, and I crave that connection with people so much that like, I just want it in the world so that we can talk about it. And like, you can come and tell me, like, how did it make you feel? I want to know how this made you feel, because this is like how I connect is through story. And so I did. I published my first book and I put it out there thinking it was going to be a duology. It took me 8 months to write the first book. I'm like, okay, great. Next year I'll do the second book. And then I'm like, okay, the second book syndrome, pressure. This is way harder than the first book. Just, it was like so much more in my head about like, am I going to disappoint people? Now there's like expectations out there because I didn't just write the whole story. But at the same time, putting that first book out there helped me learn so much about how to connect with readers and how to find people who would feel like this is the story for them. And I wouldn't have had that if I waited. I wouldn't have gotten that feedback. So I think it's like you can go either way, but I kind of do wish that I would have waited to have more written. So maybe next time.
But I think that readers, I mean, as a reader, like I expect that. Like if there's going to be more than one book in a series, I mean, I expect that it's going to be, I mean, hopefully not 2 years down the road. Sorry, dear mouth. But or Rebecca Yarros, like, can we let's get it a little bit quicker than that?
George R.R. Martin, how long has it been
Right,
since he
25
wrote that
years.
book?
I think he's never going to finish it.
Yeah.
But I think that readers expect that to a certain extent. So you can, as a marketing person, I mean, you can definitely use that to hype,
Mm-hmm.
type the second book easily.
Personally love it.
And
I
then
kind
put it
of,
in audiobook. See, then you put your first one in audiobook and that comes out and then that just keeps pushing the first one and then it gives you time to write the second one. And then, I'm just saying.
But so you put a lot of, like, that second book, and it's right, and the anxiety and the pressure and the reader's expectations, and now if you realize that the story goes a different way and you actually want it to end up differently, you can't change the thing that you put in the first book that makes it not possible. So now you have to come up with make sure the plot hole isn't there. But that you got a lot of anxiety around this with your second book, right? And you started having more panic attacks and things started affecting you more. Is that correct with kind of the second book?
I think it was a perfect storm with the second book. Like I was in the middle of, maybe I was like a third of the way through it when I lost my brother. And so there was that. And then coming, a couple of weeks later, coming after that happened, coming back to the book, and then knowing I was about to lose my grandmother, who we're just a really close family. So it was just a lot. I think that coupled with it being the second book made it really tough. But to be honest, like I couldn't write the second book for like 6 months. Like after I finished writing the first and it was in revisions and editing, my intention was to just start writing the second one right away. And I had to step back and say, I think I need to tell a different story first. I worked on the novella. So I have a novella that's like a Making the Villain novella it kind of bookends book 1 and 2, in chapter 1 and chapter 9, and then it's a prequel. So I kind of took a little break from drafting the main story, and that was my way of sort of decompressing and trying to work through the pressure. But it was, I mean, I probably rewrote the beginning of the second book like 20 times. It was really tough until it finally clicked.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you kind of work on, because especially with anxiety, I personally, like, I have only just recently within the last year or two started to not have panic attacks that make me feel like I'm dying. And I'm like you, like when I have my panic attacks, I'm thinking the end of my life is within the next hour, or however many minutes, and it's so consuming. And getting to the point to where I can realize that it's not. And it's my mind trying to think of all the possibilities of the future all at once. And getting through that, was there anything that you did that started to help you with the panic attacks and the anxiety?
Yeah. Oh man, they're so real. My breaking point was I dropped my son off from school and I barely made it there. And then I had to figure out how to make my way home. And I put on a podcast that was like a breathing through a panic attack and kind of slowly drove my way home. And I remember getting in the garage and my husband was just getting home at the time, but I was like sobbing. Like, and I said, I'm not okay. I just needed to say it out loud and tell somebody else. Like, I have been keeping it in for so long. And I finally just admitted to him, like, I'm not okay. There's something not okay right now. And I need to figure out what I need to change to, yeah, get in a better place. Because I didn't think that I was actively ruminating or actively sad, or, it was just creeping up out of nowhere. And so I started making changes, like in the morning, no matter how cold it was, I was getting up and I was taking my tea outside with a mindfulness podcast, minimum 10 minutes, just looking up in my backyard at the trees, at the wind, feeling the wind on my face, sitting on my deck. And that made such a difference, like probably the fastest difference, just getting through the day. But then I started to take bike rides, like just really, it's the fresh air. If you've ever been in a car, when you start to have panic attacks, you're like rolling down the window because that air, right? Like it's something about reminding you that you're alive and you're breathing. You are breathing. It's going to be
And
okay.
to breathe.
To
Like, I
breathe.
feel like I
Yeah.
stop breathing when I'm having a panic attack.
Yeah. Yeah. So much. There's just so much mind work that has to go into it, I feel like. And everyone's experiences and their triggers are so different. For me, it was just feeling like noticing when I was having these pacing, ruminating feelings, I need to go outside. And part of it was screens. sometimes, like just too much stimulation of screens. So social media was a big trigger, and I had to dial that back until I was able to like get in a better place. So I think it's stripping some things away and getting back to nature, getting back to like it's the simplest things you possibly can about existing, and cutting out everything else and slowly adding things back in as you're ready was my experience.
I have a question? Do your books have like a primal energy to them?
Say more about what you mean about primal.
So, like, do your characters, especially like maybe the main male character, does he get into like a primal, like very, like he's just feral for his girl and will
Oh,
like burn the world down? And it's kind of like a animalistic kind of, you
yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like energy.
Totally. I have a character who is absolutely like that. He's not like a guy who's calculating. He's all fire. He's confident. He's confident in his physical abilities. And I love writing him because he's just so sure, as opposed to like writing more of the villainous characters who are at their core really insecure and um, not maybe the word compensating is not the best word, but lashing and living in more of this fearful place a lot of times. Um, but yeah, I love writing characters who are confident in sort of the epitome of what I would love to be.
And so they're more grounded, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying this could be a complete stretch, but that's a very natural, like you get from being in nature. You get very grounded. And so maybe that's where you're like drawn to that, especially. And you're drawn to these characters.
Yeah, right. We create these characters who help us feel okay. Like, I don't know about you, I like to write multi POV kind of for that reason. It's really hard for me to live in one character's headspace for a really long time. And I think that was part of the saving grace of writing the past couple of years, was being able to be like, okay, today I get to spend some time with Falcon, who's like that guy I was just talking about, right? He's very sure, he's street smart, he just is confident, he's got a reputation, and nobody messes with him, like he's got it. Versus like other days, in book one, I have a character whose memories have been stolen from her, and so she has this hidden identity. She doesn't really know herself, and that was like a really interesting journey to be part of, to put your readers through, like learning a character as they're learning themselves. But that's kind of more of the floundering you, right? Like the inner you of trying to figure out who you are and who the people around you help you be. That was sort of her relationship with these three men who had different pieces of her and help her on her journey. So
I love that. I think that there's a piece like that Kathy was kind of hinting to, of like creating the characters that maybe wouldn't ever go through what you're going through, or they would choose something different, or they'd be able to go through it in a more like confident way. Like this guy would never be affected by a panic attack, and you know what I mean. Like we get to experience what it's like to have those decisive emotions. Like this is what I'm going to do, and I'm confident in my decisions, because sometimes, a lot of times as authors, we don't experience that. But being able to write a character who has those emotions, it's so nice, like you said, to slip into that mindset.
oh my gosh, it's like two powerful words, I feel like, when you're in that place, are what if I wasn't me, what if I really was this character, and what would I do if I had no fear? I mean, it's just so freeing. It's like what you just love about writing, right? Like it's just the best.
I have a question for you, and I think I know your answer to this. Could you like walk away from writing? Like could you just never write again?
No, I would not be okay. Like it's so much more than just like something to do. It's literally my soul, like who I am. I think it's the reason I'm on this earth, is to tell stories. And as somebody who's prone to going down these like anxiety tracks, right? I think about you know, just please, like God, at the end of the day, don't let my mind go. Like let me still be able to tell stories. Let my fingers still work. Let my voice still something to be able to tell stories when I'm 80, right? Because yeah, it's like you wouldn't ever say like me. I would never be like, okay, I'm done raising my kid. He can go do whatever now. Like, I'm always going to be a mom. Like, that's just literally part of my soul. And I think, yeah, writing is just something that it, it, not, I don't want to, it doesn't control you. Writing is just, it leads you, I think sometimes. That feels really good in times when you need that guidance, even as an adult.
All right, so I think we have a mission in society. Okay, this is crazy. Hear me out. In the past, storytellers, they probably didn't actually earn an income, like, but they were, that was their full-time job, was going and telling stories, and people, would feed them because they were at their house for dinner, and they kind of, like, the society took care of the storytellers within villages and whatnot. And that's why we're all broke, is because we're not supposed to be making money. It's just supposed to be like a collective, like, let's take care of the storytellers in our society.
Right.
We got to make this
I'll feed
happen.
you guys. You can come to my house and I'll feed you.
Well,
Tell your
it's
story.
like thinking about, like, you're not just living, right? When you have art and you have creating, it's what make it gives meaning to life, right? We're not just here to survive anymore. Like, I think maybe things were much simpler hundreds and hundreds of years ago, when literally every day you woke up and just had to survive. But, like, think about at the end of the day, right? Like, the treat or like thing that people looked forward to was like gathering around and telling stories or expressing through music or some form of appreciation for the universe. Yeah, like connection. And I think if we as a society could get back to that and realize how critical and important the arts and creativity is to our mental health and just existing, I think we would be so much healthier as people.
I agree. 100%. Let's start this movement, guys.
I have a question for you. So, what are you reading? Like, do you still read?
I do read, although a lot slower these days because I can't read too close to the genre I'm writing to. Like, you, it's so hard as writers, like, you don't realize things like slip into your psyche, right? And you're like, you're so terrified that's going to get too influential in your story. So I have a really hard time reading when I'm drafting. Right now, I'm not, I'm waiting till book 2 comes out, and then I'll be able to like shift my head back to drafting mode. So I've been kind of playing with a different story idea right now, not from the main series I am. And while I'm doing that, I'm able to like, oh, now I can read dark fantasy. Now I can read some fantasy romance and sneak that in. So in the interim, I've been finishing up. I've been finishing up Two Twisted Crowns, so like the One Dark Window series. I feel like that's been on my nightstand for so long because I've been writing so much. I tried to read Onyx Storm just because I started the series, and I think it might just not be for me. I think it's great that people love it. It's just not for me. And that's okay, right? Like, we should read the things that connect with us. I tend to like stories that have epic magic or like an element to that, like some good propulsive action, but then very intimate scenes and like scenes where we can explore complexity in characters, in relationships. So that's why I like epic dark fantasy. So I have a lot of indie authors I love, like L.J. Andrews, if you've heard of her. She writes like Vikings fantasy, which is exciting, but also like spicy, and it has good character world building. So that's a really great author that I like to come back to. I have another author friend who's an indie author, Samantha Amstutz, and she writes more of like classic epic dark fantasy. It's going to be 5-book series, so she's really great. So I try to catch up on my indies and support indie authors, and weave in some of the more trad pubs, just to kind of like get flavor and see like, what's kind of out there in the market today. But also, like, indies, just, you can write whatever you want. I think you get a little more freedom sometimes, and so you get these really like nuanced stories that you might not get in a market that's saturated with the same type of fantasy and stories. So I really like that a lot. What about
Do you
you?
read anything other than like the dark fantasy, or like I
Mm,
read pretty much everything. I don't do
yeah,
horror or thriller, but like I'm right now I'm reading I'm listening, but I'm reading, it's a like a cowboy, sweet, super spicy contemporary.
I love it. That's where my love for books started, was YA romance. I like, give me all the broody, angsty relationships, like all of
Well,
that kind of stuff.
this is full grown
Yeah.
romance.
Yeah,
Right?
but then now,
This is full grown
mhm,
romance.
I was gonna
They're
say,
not closing the door anymore.
no. I started with YA, and then yes, I've since transitioned to. I do like a good. I love slow burn, but I like it to be realistic. I'm not an insta lust kind of author, or sorry, girl. But I do love romance. I have to have romance. I have to have love in everything I read. I have a really hard time not having a romance element. Doesn't matter, but I do read romance, and I read paranormal. I like paranormal romance, like Kelly Andrew is a really great author. She's got, if you like, some people like really straightforward writing. Some people like, ooh, this is really like a craft, like lush prose,
Yes.
poetic.
I love it. Yes, the poetic writing. I love it.
Yeah, that tends to be a little bit more what I lean toward. But Kelly Andrew is really great if you like kind of a paranormal romance. She's got a new one out called I Am Made of Death, and it's like she calls it like a bubblegum horror romance. So it's like it has some supernatural elements to it, like demons, that kind of thing. But it's also like enemies to lovers kind of a thing, and you get some of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I love reading outside of the main fantasy genre for like palate cleansers, and yeah, I read a lot too. I have a hard time reading uh no, I have a hard time reading nonfiction these days. Um and I'm not as into like the like hockey romance or like sports romance. I know that's really
I've
big right
got some
now.
Man,
really
you're
good
missing
hockey
I
out.
ones. Oh
know.
my God.
I know. Although I have
We got a recommendation for
okay,
you.
Yes, we
I'll take
do.
it. I I have a friend in my drafting group who wrote like she writes very spicy stuff, but she wrote kind of like she's from Arizona, and it's kind of set in that. It's like a Western kind of vibe, like tumbleweed, ghost town kind of vibe romance. And so she likes to write in these niche, like not hockey, but like, Westerns with, paired with, some kind of paranormal romance. And I really like that too, like cross
Like
genre.
Debbie Maycomer vibes.
Yeah. hmm
Yeah,
So
I like it.
I love that question.
So, okay, we need to hear about Dust and Darkness, or Whispers of Dust and Darkness. Tell us about that first book so listeners can kind of know what to expect with it.
Yes, yes. Well, I mentioned like the whole memory tropes thing, but it's a series about a kingdom that's on the brink of rebellion, and this fugitive who is um kind of rising into herself. She has this hidden identity, and her and these three men who have been hiding her across realms, playing this game of hide and seek against the monarchy that's enslaving magic. It's their epic quest to go in search of, who she truly is, freeing her true identity, and figuring out a way how to stoke this revolution and free the magic born in their kingdom. And the second book it kind of continues that theme, but I love second books. I tend to, because you get to really expand the world. And so the second book has a lot more sort of like these undertones of gothic vibes, like in a One Dark Window, but still with like the epic adventure and magic of like Six of Crows. Um, and it's a series, like if you like that kind of mashup of having epic action and magic with more of the gothic dark undertones, exploring light and dark themes of courage and strength, I think you might like it.
Yeah, I go ahead, Kathy.
Oh,
Ask your question.
I was gonna ask if you have any plans to put any of your books into audiobook.
I do. The first one is out in audio right now. So I missed your ship, Kathy. But I'm working. No, I'm working with a wonderful human being. Her name is Shannon Parker Tang. She's done some romance. I think when I just heard her voice, you just kind of get that chills, the feeling of like, ooh, this is my main character's name is Ophelia, and I'm like, she's Ophelia. Like, you just kind of hear the narration and feel like it resonated. So yeah, she is actually just starting to do the voice profiles and pronunciations for book 2, because I have a whole like separate language in my book, and we're going to the north in book 2, and they speak this other language, and so she's like, Sarah, what are you doing to me? And I'm like,
Did you say Sarah
figuring out
Pluck?
it's
Sarah
no,
Pluckett? Is that how
no.
he's?
My narrator's name is Shannon Parker Tang, but she
Uh,
was I was saying, I'm giving her all of these, so many characters to begin with, and then throw in another language that she has to do, and accents, and just like kind of bless her, because it's multi POV already, and then she's got just so many secondary characters. And I don't tend to write simple plots. Like, they're very much like we're laying the pieces in these scenes, and by the end of it you're like, oh, like how they all come together. So everything's very woven and intentional. And so the nuance is very important. Like, when she's doing the narration, she wants to be sure, like, what's really the dynamic at play here, and what are the undertones of the characters, like why are they in conflict. um, so it's been like a really cool process to look at it from her lens, ways I never would have seen the book before, and also get to like nerd out and like dive into like why the characters are the way they are, and it's just so fun. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an art to taking it from words, or from written words to spoken words, and it's one of my favorite things in the entire world, because I can read a book and then I can listen to a book, and I have two very different experiences of that book.
Yeah, I feel like fantasy can be really hard actually to listen to the audiobook if you've never read the book. I did get a few people say like, "Oh, I was kind of lost at first." I'm like, I can totally see why. Um,
Yeah.
Especially in my series, when you've got a character who doesn't really know who she is, and you've got world building at the beginning, and you're trying to figure out like what's this magic system, and what are yeah. So man, they've got a big task. I feel like my narrator spent so much more time than I ever knew the narrators do. Put so
Yeah.
much time and
That per
energy.
finished hour paid is not anywhere close to the hours that they actually spend prepping and getting ready for it, and the work that they put into
Oh my
the
gosh.
audiobooks.
I'm so grateful, like so grateful for the partnership in this community, from narrators to artists. Like, truly, I don't think when we sit down to look at read a book or listen to something, we're just there for the experience. And if that experience doesn't live up to what we wanted it to be, we're just like, ah, this could have been so much better, 3 stars. And we move on with our life. And I think when you're a writer or you're a creative in any capacity, you start to really understand the amount of heart and work and time and love that has gone into putting all of this together. That connection and collaboration that's my favorite thing about this. Like, it's just so hard to explain, when you haven't experienced it, maybe from being on sort of the inside of that. But I have just such an appreciation for people who do what they do, and so glad that we're not like expected to wear all the hats ourselves as authors.
No, some people hold us to a flame for sure.
Yeah, they really do. Yeah, I try.
It's fine. We're not worried about them. We're
No,
there for the people who enjoy it.
that's so true. I've had to stop. I don't read reviews anymore. Like, I'll have people that are on like a street team or whatever will send me like, "Hey, did you see this? This person really loved your stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much." Then I can like feature it or whatever. But I don't, for my mental health, read those anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a you have to be in the right mindset for that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Where can we find your books? And where can we follow you on social media? Because I do you post about the process, and how are you with social media managing everything else too?
Yeah, I'm not. No.
Right?
It would be really great if I had a plan. I admire people who can plan out like their social media content schedule for the month. I am very fly by the seat of my pants these days. Very like a mood writer, mood reader, mood poster. Trying to have a plan going into like book launches, and just giving more of the back, behind the scenes stuff as we get closer. But leading up to it has been very much like, giving them tastes of the book and stuff. But I am on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, Threads, and I think those are my primary. The other ones, like, you're kind of on, but you're just feeling like you're not really finding your people or the audience. And so I would say TikTok, Instagram, and Threads are probably the place that I love to interact with readers the most. And my book, so Every Dark Shadow, is book one, and it's available in Kindle Unlimited. It's available in audiobook, and I sell them direct through my site too. If people are like, I don't want to support Amazon, the big guy. I love to personalize books for people. It's so fun for me to send you something like from my heart to your doorstep. And yeah, so book two will be coming out March 25th, and that will also be in all of the formats.
I love that. Sarah, you are fantastic. These conversations are so, so needed, especially with diving into the darker elements of life and bringing light to it's okay, guys. It's okay that we have these dark thoughts. You're not crazy because of it. It's actually pretty human. So I think this conversation is so needed in this world, and I appreciate you so much for allowing us to explore this.
Well, I'm so glad to be here, and the openness that you've created with this podcast is so needed and appreciated. And I feel like I've made new friends. So thank you.
Yay. That's the ultimate goal of this. I just wanted friends.
Yes, we're friends.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of L3. We'll see you on the next one.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us on this episode of Lemmon's Listening Library. Remember, every story has a journey, and every journey deserves to be heard. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep listening.